Linda, as well as our member of the European Parliament. Linda's become a close personal friend. In fact, her brother lives across the road from me in Pudsey in West Yorkshire, and it's always a pleasure to be here in your home city. Mohammed Issa, we met when I came and spoke at the meeting with the Somaliland community, with the Yemeni community, and with the Kashmiri community. And I thought that was a really excellent meeting and helped us an awful lot in the campaign. And Mr. Adam Yusuf, thank you very much indeed for your contribution, for the words you've said. And I shall look forward, if I don't have to leave before, to Dr. Edna Adan Ismail, the former Foreign Minister, who's with us here today. And I really thank you and everybody else who's come from London and from other parts of the world to be with us today. This is a very, very important event. So I apologise first for having to leave at 4 p.m. I will stay until then, but I've got another event to do in the city of Leeds this afternoon. So, as you will have heard, I took over as Shadow Minister for Sub-Saharan Africa as part of the Shadow Foreign and Commonwealth Office team in January of this year. It was my first front bench position in 19 years as a Member of Parliament. So great honour. I have served on the Foreign Affairs Select Committee and the International Development Committee, and over 19 years have gained some knowledge of international and world affairs. But it was in 2006 that my own daughter, whilst doing her work experience as part of her postgraduate degree, working for the MP, the new MP at the time for Bristol, Kerry McCarthy, helped Kerry to set up the all-party parliamentary group for Somaliland. And at the time, my daughter was living with me in my small flat in London near Westminster. And every night we came home, I had stories about Somaliland, why it was a beacon of democracy, why Somaliland should be recognized by the world community as a separate state, why Somaliland was so special and the Somalilanders such special people, and the contribution that they had made. And I wish people wouldn't ring me while I'm speaking. So that was my grounding and my initial knowledge of why this is such an important issue. Now, you'll be interested to know that the first team meeting I attended in January as the new Shadow Minister with our Shadow Secretary of State, Hilary Benn, I mentioned, the very first item of policy I mentioned was my view that Somaliland should be recognized as a separate nation. So you have here somebody who is a friend of yours. But as Paul pointed out, I think quite appropriately, there are many obstacles in the way. Hilary and other members of the team believed it's not the place of the British opposition to decide which countries should be independent in Africa and which countries shouldn't. And indeed, the record of the Western powers in deciding that, for example, there should be a separate state of South Sudan, which I think was a very logical thing at the time, has proved not to be such a great decision, or at least its implementation has not been so brilliant. So the record of the Western former imperialist nations like ours actually making decisions on the borders of nations within Africa is not a good one. That does not mean to say that we should, especially in the Labour Party, not be friends of the ambitions and the aspirations of a nation of people who have shown the world what democratic Africa can look like, what the rule of law means, what freedom means, what democracy means. And whilst I take on board everything my friend Paul says, and I actually endorse what he says, the fact is that the record in Somaliland is quite exceptional, even taking into account some of those mildly critical things that have been said. And I'm sure you will take those on board. So my thoughts are these, that as Hilary said to me at the time, Hilary Benn, we need the African Union to be on board. And I would urge you to do everything you can diplomatically to persuade those who are running the AU, based in Addis Ababa, that your case is a forceful, powerful, and good case for Somaliland independence. And I will be happy to back you up on that when I visit Addis Ababa in the next few months. It's going to be my first port of call as the Shadow Minister for Africa, and I hope that Hilary Benn will join me on that visit. And if indeed it is possible, because Hargeisa is not very far from Addis, I would hope to fly into Hargeisa and maybe meet members of the government opposition. And and other civil society groups. Because I think that always, as Howard pointed out, it always gives you, and my experience of being a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee and latterly the International Development Committee of the House of Commons, is that there is no substitute for actually being there, meeting the people and getting a feel for that country, that nation, that culture on the ground. And I know Linda is the expert in this as chair of the International Development Committee of the European Parliament, which I think you still are. So, the other thought that occurs to me is this, and I was asked by Mohammed to mention this, the Commonwealth. Now, one of my roles as Shadow Minister is for the Commonwealth, and I'm hoping to have an early meeting with Baroness Scotland, the new Secretary-General of the Commonwealth. I've been nagging her since January for a meeting. She only took over, as you know, in April. But I hope to talk to her about using the Commonwealth as a vehicle to persuade the world community and the community of African nations that Somaliland deserves recognition. So you don't need to convince me of your case. But I have a lot of persuasion to do of my colleagues, of our team, and of others who perhaps are a little bit more sceptical that Britain pronouncing on this, or Britain's official opposition pronouncing on Somaliland's future, is not a very good idea. I think we need to take a position. I will continue to argue for that. Sheffield's shown the way, April the 2nd, 2014. I think it was 2014, not 1914, but maybe it was 1914. And that your legal case, 5 days as an independent nation in 1960, maybe does give the legal basis, however tenuous it may seem, that Somaliland has been a nation in its own right before the merger and the formation of Somalia. So let us work together to persuade those that we need to persuade, both in the international community, and I think also the European Union too, but I'm not going to steal the words that Linda, I hope, may say later, that we work together to convince the world that there is a very powerful case for Somaliland, that this is not going to be a repeat of some of the disasters we've seen. This is not a former imperial nation dictating to Africa what it should and shouldn't do. But we will go along with the aspirations and the hopes of a society, of a culture, of a nation of people that have shown a beacon of light in Africa, and I hope can improve on their already good record along the lines that Paul has said earlier. So thank you once again.
Honourable Members of Parliament, Honourable Shadow Minister, Honourable Chairman of the political party, UID, Honourable friends, dear friends, thank you all very much for inviting us to your great city, Sheffield. Honourable Mayor, we're here today not to break up the continent of Africa. We're here to mend it. We're here to support the constitutions and the democracy of Africa where it does exist. Honourable Mayor, we're not here to take away something from somebody else, but we're here to seek what is right for those who have been denied their rights and the rights to their rightful identity. If I wind back the clock, I know our forefathers were here in this great city to work alongside your great sons, to fight alongside your brave soldiers at a time when Britain and other democratic nations and peaceful nations in Europe and the world were suffering the injustice of Nazism, were suffering holocausts, were suffering bombs that are, as recently as yesterday, unexploded bombs are being discovered in London. We're not here to blow things up. We're not here to kill. We're here to heal. And if I may remind ourselves, the borders of Africa were not made by me, were not made by us. The borders were set by you, Great Britain, Anglo-French, Anglo-Italian, and Ethiopian treaties marked the borders where they are today. They were your treaties that demarcated our borders. It is not we in Somaliland today who wish to annex territory that does not belong to us. We're not here to take land away from the former Italian Somalia, nor from Ethiopia, neither from Djibouti or from anybody else. We respect international borders. We are the ones who established and fought for the freedom of many African countries, because when Somaliland became independent on the 26th of June 1960, Somaliland, former British Somaliland Protectorate, became the 12th nation in Africa to become independent. Lord Mayor, 42 African countries who are today sitting in the African Union in Addis Ababa today were still under colonial rule when my country was independent and was the 12th country to become independent. Now, how can they decide what becomes of me? I hold seniority over them. I hold legal status over them. I hold democracy over them. Somaliland is not an experiment. We have proven our track record of 25 years, a quarter of a century, Lord Mayor, is not an experiment. It's proof that you have a nation and people living inside legal territories to hold that country together, to hold the peace and the stability in that territory, to hold law and order and maintain democracy and political parties when opposition parties and government parties can sit together and fight for the cause of a nation. That tells the world something. Lord Mayor, we're here to seek justice. Lord Mayor, we're here to fight for what is right. Fight against terrorism. Fight against fundamentalism. Fight against injustice. Fight against human suffering. Somaliland is today a shelter to 17,000 of our brothers from across the Gulf of Aden from Yemen. My hospital is the treating hospital for 17,000 women and children who have fled injustice, and I'm so proud. I'm so honored that I can hold the hand of a sick child and stay up nights to try and save the life of that child when they have run away from the bombs that were thrown upon them from their own people, the same way my people were being bombed by other Somalis. There is no way, ladies and gentlemen, that Somaliland will return to a position where it will become a victim of bombs again. Somali bones and children and women and human flesh will not fill mass graves again. We will die to the last old man and old woman. And if old women like me die tomorrow, there will be the young ones to carry forward what is right for the people of Somaliland. Lord Mayor, the Gulf of Aden is a gateway to world trade, is a gateway to the oil of the world. Thank goodness you have Somaliland on the Gulf of Aden and not Somalia. Now, where would the pirates have hunted if Somalia had been where we are today? That Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea passage of the sea lanes of the Red Sea have been peaceful for 25 years because Somaliland was keeping watch. Not 40,000 international troops in Somalia who could not even bring peace to one city in Somalia. It's because Somaliland kept watch. The world slept and did not worry about those sea lanes because Somaliland was keeping watch. We refused to have terrorism in our seas and in our sea waters and in our borders and shores. Every old man and every old woman and every young one and young and old keep watch in Somaliland. We do not condone injustice and fundamentalism. Youth, 4 million Somalilanders today, 55% of them are young people, hot-blooded, tons of energy. They want to use their energy in a constructive and positive way. But if they are denied their rightful identity, they will fall prey to those who are running around with millions and who have bombs to hand them, to blow themselves up and blow people like you and me up, because we have denied them their rightful identity. When the world is rewarding the terrorists in neighboring Somalia and denying the rightful existence of the people of Somaliland, then I ask myself, why did the world waste its time on me, teaching me about democracy, when it had no intention to exercise democracy in my country and in my land with my people? Ladies and gentlemen, I could talk for hours about my country because there is so much to tell about my great country, Somaliland. We have held, yes, our elections have been delayed, but I would not like the world to forget that we have held 4 general elections before that. We are not being taught to do democratic elections. We have done it. We have proven to the world that we could do it with very little money from the external communities, international communities. I remember when I was a foreign minister, and my brother here was the head of a political party. We were opponents in ideas and ideologies, but we were brothers and sisters in what was right for the people of Somaliland, and we still fight today. We serve on the same committee. There's a great man who I respect. That's what Somalilanders are made of. That's the path of democracy, and the path and the rightful existence of our people is all we want. Do not, and I will say it a third time, do not try to reattach us to the dead and fragmented corpse that is La Somalia Italiana. It does not exist. We will not become reattached to them. We cannot. There's nothing attractive about getting it reattached to them. What do they have to offer us? Terrorism? We don't want it. Fundamentalism? We oppose it. Lawlessness? We do not want it. We live because we have law and order in Somaliland. They gain from lawlessness when we are proud to be law-abiding citizens. We don't have billions coming to us. We're happy with the little we generate from our own country and our own resources. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this message, this very short message, I'm used to doing 2 and 3 hour lectures, and I will not impose that on you today. There's a lot of good material in this book. I would like you to remember just one word. Somaliland is here, and is here to stay. No bombs, no tanks, no guns, no rope can tie us back to Somalia. Thank you very much.
For deciding to organise this event in Sheffield, because I'm proud to represent, Clive and the other members of Parliament proud to represent, a very substantial part of the Somaliland diaspora here within the city, and it's a community that I very much enjoy working with. And Sheffield is a city which has not only taken the lead on the Somaliland issue, but also has a long and radical tradition on domestic and international politics. And we 30, 40 years ago, we were the leading city in solidarity with the African National Congress in South Africa in coordinating local authorities across the country to bring pressure to bear for the establishment of a non-racial democratic South Africa, something that Nelson Mandela recognized when he was released and ultimately took the presidency of South Africa. So you're in the right place to be having this discussion, and I'm delighted to be here as a friend of Somaliland. Since I was elected to Parliament in 2010, I've been active with Clive Betts in the all-party parliamentary Somaliland group. I've had the privilege to speak at rallies that have been organised by the Somaliland community at Westminster in support of recognition, and was delighted to meet with President Siliano when he was in Britain a few years ago. And delighted to work with the City Council in establishing its position as the first city to recognise Somaliland. Not that that in itself makes a difference, but we were hoping that we might create that sort of mood, that sort of campaign and momentum across the country that would help to develop the case politically at a national level. Because I do think that so much has been achieved since 1991 within Somaliland to make the case for recognition. The establishment of democratic government, the establishment of independent judiciary, all of the kind of many points that are made within your pamphlet, which I've quickly read. Not only the establishment of all the attributes of an independent state, but many of those which would meet the criteria of the international community for what constitutes statehood. And so you have a powerful case and bring stability to a part of Africa which sadly needs it. And so I very much speak to you as a friend, and as a friend to advance the discussions that you're having. And I think it's so important that you have these practical discussions about this is where we are, how do we move forward? But in that context, as a friend, to be honest about some of the issues that we face in making the case. And I know that Fabian, speaking on behalf of our front bench foreign affairs team, will presumably be talking in making some of the same points. But one of the arguments that many of us have made is that Somaliland is a beacon of democracy. And that's a powerful part of the narrative to make the case for recognition.
Around about 8 or 9 years ago now. I hope to go back. I think the difference is that as an MP, I could go back to Somaliland. I couldn't go back to Somalia. There is no way the Foreign Office would allow me to go for safety reasons. Some of my colleagues have been as far as the security. Yeah, I'm just making the point because I think it does actually. Just in terms of picking up the key issues, the problem is that for the international community, in this issue, doing nothing is an option. If they do nothing, it doesn't really cause many difficulties. It's just another less problem they have to deal with, and they can go on and deal with other things. Because doing nothing simply means you carry on as you're carrying on, and Somalia carries on, and there's no great consequences. So I think it is about looking at the issues that hopefully can start to probably edge the process forward. I don't think we're going to get a dramatic change all of a sudden, realistically. So trying to pick up on Howard's point there, I think it might be helpful if you can lay out very clearly the 2 or 3 reasons why the legal basis for recognition exists that can be repeated over and over again, because the best arguments are those that you simply say over and over again till people have heard them so many times they believe them to be true. I mean, this one is true, of course, so that's what we're telling them. And it's interesting, Mohammed Issa sent me a paper the other day, and I think it was very interesting, an academic document. Can we turn that into a simple message? Is it that for 5 days Somaliland was independent and chose to join the Union with Somalia, and therefore the post-colonial boundary, which fits in with the African Union narrative, actually was Somaliland itself, and going back to it there isn't undermining the issue of the post-colonial boundaries? Is it that the Union was flawed because a different agreement was actually signed by the Somaliland Parliament and the Somalia Parliament, completely different wording on the treaty? Or is it simply that Somalia doesn't de facto govern Somaliland and hasn't done for so many years that